Hello and welcome our channel on all things ETFs. Today, we're going to be talking about the Subversive Unusual Whales Democratic ETF, or NANC for short. The fund is an actively managed diversified exchange-traded fund that seeks to achieve its investment objective by investing primarily in equity securities of publicly traded companies that sitting Democratic members of United States Congress and or their families also have reported to have invested in through public disclosure filings made by such congresspersons pursuant to the Stop Trading on Congressional Knowledge Act, STOCK Act. Members of Congress are permitted to actively trade stocks, options and other financial assets, including securities of companies that may be affected by the outcomes of legislative and executive meetings in which those members of Congress participated. Congresspeople, senators and members of the House of Representatives, and or their families are then required to report these transactions on Stock Act filings, known as Periodic Transaction Reports, PTRs. PTRs are filed with either the Senate Office of Public Records or the Clerk of the House of Representatives and made available online pursuant to the Ethics in Government Act, AGA, as amended. PTRs are due within 30 days from when a congressperson or their spouse becomes aware of a transaction, but no later than 45 days from the date of the transaction. The fund will focus on the equity securities purchased or sold by members of Congress who are registered members of the Democratic Party and their families. The fund will not consider investments by any U.S. congressperson who is not registered as a member of the Democratic Party. Subversive Capital Advisor, the fund's investment advisor, will obtain and use information derived by others from PTRs filed by Democratic U.S. congresspeople and their family members, hereinafter referred to collectively as Democratic U.S. congresspeople, to determine which equity securities of publicly traded companies, and how much of each equity security, to select for the fund. After establishing an initial portfolio, the fund will typically buy or sell a security when a position is reported as being bought or sold by Democratic U.S. congresspeople. The fund will base its purchases and sales of equity securities of publicly traded companies on trades reported in the PTRs by Democratic U.S. congresspeople while in office. Because PTRs report a range of transaction values, the advisor will adjust the relative composition of the fund's portfolio based on the midpoint of these ranges. To create the fund's initial portfolio, the advisor will obtain and use information derived by others from PTRs filed by Democratic U.S. congresspeople for the past 3 years. Purchases made during that time will be netted against any sales of the same security to create an initial portfolio of equity securities. As the investment thesis of the fund is to track the trading activity of Democratic U.S. congresspeople while in office, equity securities acquired by Democratic U.S. congresspeople prior to his or her swearing in, or the 3-year look-back period, are not considered when creating the initial portfolio. To the extent a Democratic U.S. congressperson sells equity securities that were acquired prior to his or her swearing in, the advisor will not adjust the fund's portfolio. Under normal circumstances, the fund will invest in a portfolio of between 500 and 600 equity securities. However, the number and size of positions held by the fund will vary based on the number of positions traded by Democratic U.S. congresspeople. When multiple PTRs are made available on the same day by different Democratic U.S. congresspeople, trades of the same equity securities will be netted for purposes of adjusting the fund's portfolio. Trades reported in an individual PTR as bought and sold are excluded. The fund will also exclude transactions in the securities underlying of any reported options contract trades. In addition to equity securities, the fund will also transact in sector-specific mutual funds and ETFs reported to have been traded on PTRs, but will exclude broad-based mutual fund and ETF trades. The advisor may also refrain from making de minimis trades representing 1% of the overall portfolio, as such trades will have little to no economic impact on the fund's performance. In an effort to achieve its goals, the fund may engage in active and frequent trading. As with any fund, there are risks to investing. An investment in the fund is not a deposit of a bank and is not insured or guaranteed by the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation or any other governmental agency. In addition to possibly not achieving your investment goals, you could lose all or a portion of your investment in the fund over short or even long periods of time. Fund distributions are generally taxable as ordinary income, qualified dividend income, or capital gains, or a combination, unless your investment is in an IRA or other tax-advantaged account. Distributions on investments made through tax-deferred arrangements may be taxed later upon withdrawal of assets from those accounts. Shares of the fund are listed on the exchange, and individual shares may only be bought and sold in the secondary market through brokers at market prices, rather than NAV. Because shares of the fund trade at market prices rather than NAV, the fund's shares may trade at a price greater than NAV, premium, or less than NAV, discount. The fund issues and redeems its shares at NAV only in large specified numbers of shares known as creation units, which only APs, typically broker-dealers, may purchase or redeem. The fund generally issues and redeems creation units in exchange for a portfolio of securities and/or a designated amount of U.S. cash. Investors may incur costs attributable to the difference between the highest price a buyer is willing to pay to purchase shares of the fund, bid, and the lowest price a seller is willing to accept for shares of the fund, ask. When buying or selling shares in the secondary market, the bid-ask spread. Recent information about the fund, including its NAV, market price, premiums and discounts, and bid-ask spreads is available on the fund's website at www.subversive.com/ETFs. Like and subscribe for more.